Welcome. My name is Kate Marand. I'm a program manager at the DC Department of Small and Local Business Development. This is a CBE Green Grant information session. This is the only full information session that we will do, but we will record this session and we will have several drop-in Q&A sessions in which we can answer any questions about the grant, but also review any sections of the information session that you may be interested in. If you found this session on DSLBD's Eventbrite, you will also find in that same exact listing the dates and times of the drop-in Q&A sessions throughout the period. So what we're going to do today is we are going to walk through basic information for the grant and how to apply, and then answer any questions. So without further ado, I will go ahead and dive right in. The grant is going to be open until December 2nd, 2022 at 2 p.m. There are a lot of twos in that. Hopefully that makes that memorable. But all grant materials have to be submitted by that deadline. If there are grant applications that are incomplete, either for eligibility or other materials requested for the grant, they will not be considered for scoring. It is also important to note, and we'll talk more about this, only active certified business enterprises are eligible to apply. So you would need an active CBE certification from DSLBD, and it would have to remain active. So make sure that you are checking that status as well. So in our agenda today, we're going to do an overview of what is CBE Green, which is a larger program that this grant is related to. And then we're going to spend a lot of time on an official document called the Request for Applications. That is all of the legal rules related to this grant. That will include information about deadlines, eligibility, the potential use of funds, what you can and can't use funds on, and some information about the competitive application. We'll also spend some time with a little bit of an overview of how to use Zoom Grants. Zoom Grants is the application system for this grant. We'll say a little bit about what the award process will look like for those who are awarded, and then we'll take questions. So for the question policy overall on the grant, we highly recommend that you ask grants in session or questions in sessions like this. So again, that's all available on the Eventbrite. We will have additional sessions that you can come to. We're going to put all recorded sessions, and we'll record all the Q&A sessions will be posted in the Eventbrite. They will also be posted in the Zoom grant system, and they'll be sent to all registrants for those sessions. So outside of an information session, we do not accept calls. And so please send all questions in writing to inno.ed@dc.gov. That information is all over the ERFA as well. That is the main email address for my division at DSLBD. If you are having technical difficulties with Zoom grants, there is a Zoom grants contact you can reach out to as well. We'll cover that again. But again, we will not accept phone calls. So please make sure that you ask a question in an information session, in a drop-in Q&A session, or in writing at inno.ed@dc.gov. So let's talk a little bit about what this grant is. And so I have here on the screen, so that folks can read it, the objective for the grant. An objective is actually written into that request for applications, and it says what it is that the agency is trying to achieve by putting this grant out. It has a lot of top-level important pieces of information. So you are going to see me somewhat reading from the slides as we go through, because the specific information is very important. This information is all pulled from the RFA, and we do encourage applicants to read the RFA from cover to cover. I think it's under 10 pages. So the CBE Green Grants are for certified business enterprises to provide direct support to other small, resident-owned, and disadvantaged CBEs pursuing contracting opportunities with the DC Sustainable Energy Utility and similar opportunities. So to break that down a little bit, those who receive the grants under the CBE Green have to be CBEs. And under the grants, they will be providing services and support to other CBEs. The CBEs that they will support have to fit one of the 3 sub-designations of small, resident-owned, or disadvantaged to be able to be eligible for the support provided by the CBEs that win the grant. This is all in relation to contracting opportunities with the DC Sustainable Energy Utility, which is a major contractor of the Department of Energy and the Environment. Department of Energy and the Environment is funding DSLBD in order to be able to make these grants. And so it's all tied back to DOEE and some of this work. So within that, we are seeking proposals from CBEs to do one of 3 things: provide market research, provide marketing, and provide back office services, things related to business operations, to support CBEs and help them achieve success with green energy contracts. We intend to award around 4 to 8 grants for a mix of support from the $250,000 that is available in fiscal year 23. This is the second year of the grant. Last year, we had a very similar grant if you look back at it, but we've opened up some of the different types of services that CBEs may provide under this year's grant. So let's specifically look at the funding amounts that CBEs can apply for. I mentioned 3 different areas. One is a market study. That market study can be funded up to $25,000. So it's a study of CBE opportunities in the green energy economy, including but not limited to opportunities related to the building energy benchmarking, solar, and building maintenance and upgrades. So we'll talk a little bit about CBE Green and the opportunities from DCSEU, but building energy benchmarking is a major new requirement here in the District of Columbia that was passed as part of the 2018 Omnibus Climate Act. So all of this starts to relate into that. Now, there are a lot of opportunities that are available for CBEs directly from DCSEU, but there's also more from other agencies and more that is in the private market. And so the market study would look to be able to explain what those opportunities are. Marketing, which is related, up to $25,000 to provide specific marketing services to CBEs that are small, resident-owned, or disadvantaged, to prime contractors in the green energy infrastructure space, but also promoting opportunities with primes to CBEs. And the third piece of marketing would be for DCSEU's Train Green program, which we'll talk a little bit more about, but Train Green is free to district residents. It is also free to the employees of CBEs in order to get necessary certifications to be able to do more work in this space. And then the last space is back office services of up to $50,000 to provide back office services for between 25 and 100 CBEs, scaling really depending on what the services that you're looking to provide, pursuing or preparing to pursue green procurement opportunities. We've opened up what the definition of back office is. Last year, we had some very specific areas of proposal development, legal support, and accounting. Those are all perfectly fine, but additional other or innovative ideas are also welcome this year. And I'm going to go ahead and check who's on mute. We just want to make sure that we stay muted throughout this section until we get to Q&A. So if you could make sure that your phone stays on mute, that would be highly appreciated. Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about why this grant is happening. So as I mentioned, CBE Green is an initiative within DSLBD to support CBEs into the expanding green and sustainable energy buildings market. That's a really big market, not just here locally, but also nationally. There's a lot of funding that is starting to come down from the federal government as part of the recent infrastructure bill. And so it is a lot of opportunity. Within that opportunity, it does sometimes require additional skill up or just additional awareness of what the market opportunities are. So in partnership with the Department of Energy and the Environment, we are supporting CBEs through additional training opportunities to prepare them for DOE, DCSEU, and more green market opportunities. So I saw a question come in on the RFA. We are going to get to that page in a second, but that will be answered. First, we're going to say a little bit more about CBE Green overall. So what we've been rebranding a little bit about what this looks like. And so under CBE Green, there's a section we sort of refer to as Procure Green and one we refer to as Train Green. And so Procure Green are the specific opportunities at DCSEU. So the link is available here and everyone will have access to this slide deck, but you can also just go to DCSEU and start looking for their contracting opportunities. If you go to the 3 little dots there, you'll see something that says for contractors, and under that, you'll see for contracting opportunities. DCSEU does have multiple scopes of work that are open all of the time, and they have some that come up occasionally. So it's a really good place to be looking at the types of scopes of work that are available directly through DCSEU. Within that, we are also partnering very closely with DC's Procurement Technical Assistance Center. If you are a CBE and you are not currently a client of DC PTAC, we highly recommend it. You can find DC PTAC on DSLBD's main page, and you can see the information that's listed there that says become a client. And so they are helping to additionally support any CBEs who are looking at getting into this market. There's also a component that is important, and we hope that more and more people can learn about and take advantage of the overall CBE Green program. This is entirely operated by DCSEU, but it is Train Green. And under that, there are a lot of different free trainings. And it's good to look at what was the trainings last year, what might be coming up this year, and make a list. They do have support, and we'll show you some videos that you can look at to see what is the training pathway. You can start from the very beginning and then skill up through several different layers of skills as part of Train Green. And we want to make sure that most people know that these free trainings, many of which are not available for free across the country, but available for free here in DC, that people know about them and are able to take advantage of them to support their business. So this is these are a few videos. These are also available on the CBE Green webpage that is on DSLBD's website. But I want to tell you what each of these 3 videos are and why they might be useful. The first 2 are about the requirements and laws that happened here in the district starting in 2018 with the Climate Omnibus Act. So every building in the District of Columbia and increasingly smaller buildings are required to get energy benchmarked. Those energy benchmarks are required because in the District of Columbia, the largest producer of carbon is not cars, it's buildings. And so to reduce the carbon footprint of Washington, D.C., buildings have to go through energy upgrades. So in order to know what needs to be changed, first they have to be benchmarked. And that means that there are opportunities for CBEs to participate in contracts related to benchmarking a building. And if CBEs don't have those current skills, they can go through Train Green to get them. Once benchmarking has happened, then they start looking at how does that align to the building energy performance standards known as BEPS. And so under BEPS, buildings that are the worst energy performers are the ones that first have to go through upgrades. Some of those upgrades are paid for by DCSEU, but some of those upgrades are also required by the individual building owners. They have to find someone who can do those energy upgrades for them. So while not included here directly, we do know that there's a building hub where there are over 600 buildings that are going to need to go through energy upgrades in the next few years at a minimum. And that last piece that I mentioned in terms of a video, if you want to see a little bit more about Train Green and how people can get connected to the trainings, we did a video on that last year as well. So this is some useful background information. Someone asked earlier where to get a copy of the RFA. So this link will be available when we send this out. However, if you want to find this right now and go through this while we're talking, if you Google CBE Green, you should find this directly, or you can also Google DSLBD current grant opportunities. Both of those should come up pretty quickly as you are looking for current grant opportunities. This is the only grant opportunity currently listed on DSLBD's current grant opportunities. The RFA, I'll say this, the RFA is a super important document as you are applying to grants. It is the legal rules for the grant. Everything that we look at in the grant competition applies back to the RFA. You can see here the 9 sections of the RFA. There's an objective, there's the online application link and the deadline. The only way to get the online application link is through the RFA. There's all of the information about eligibility documentation, restrictions on allowable use of funds, narrative and budget questions, how we're going to score the grant, how we're going to select the grant, and then what will happen at award, as well as some important legal disclaimers. So as I said, I think it's under 10 pages. Highly recommend that you read it from cover to cover. So there are a few key deadlines. These are listed in the RFA, but we're going to talk about them now so that you're paying attention. The most important deadline is the final deadline. If you do not complete everything in your application by that exact deadline, your application will not be scored. And that is December 2nd at 2 p.m. Eastern time. That's not 2 and 3 seconds, that's 2 p.m. We will close the grant and it has to be in by then. However, there are some early deadlines that we'll talk about that if you get things in earlier, you'll get some additional pre-review, which will probably be super useful. We'll get to those in a second. But that is the final deadline. We also have a deadline on questions. You can submit a question after this, but we do not guarantee an answer before the final closing of the grant. So we highly recommend that you get questions in writing to us at inno.ed@dc.gov by November 30th at 2 p.m. We have scheduled one additional drop-in Q&A session shortly after that. So if you did miss getting your question in, we will do one last drop-in Q&A session. Our first courtesy deadline is November 4th at 2 p.m. And our second courtesy deadline is November 18th at 2 p.m. So let me tell you what a courtesy deadline is. We know that grant eligibility can be challenging and that it's a lot of work to put together an application only to find out that there was a mistake on your eligibility information. We don't like it when that happens. We want everyone's application who's working real hard to be able to make it through. So we offer courtesy deadlines so that you can submit your eligibility information early. If you have submitted by that time, we will review your eligibility with enough time for you to make a correction. So please keep an eye on these eligibility deadlines, November 4th and November 18th at 2 p.m. They are here to support you. And we'll say that there's a lot of, we're going to go over a lot, but there's a lot of common confusions that people have when submitting eligibility information. So you may think that you have the exact right document, and we'll look at it and we'll say that's not right, and then we'll give you information so that you can correct. All right, so we're going to dive into eligibility. And we think it's super important. Some of our grants, we do a separate paperwork boot camp. We've put them all together for this one, but we were very happy to be answering eligibility questions at additional drop-in Q&A sessions. But you have to submit literally everything that's part of this or you won't be scored. So you have to be an active CBE, and you're going to have to give us your active CBE number. I will say, and I'll say it again, that in the grant last year, some people thought they knew their CBE number and then found out that their CBE number had been updated. So make sure you actually go into the database and get your most up-to-date copy. You have to have an active business license. We are going to check that in the now Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection, previously DCRA. We'll check that in their online system. So you want to make sure that everything looks okay with that. You will have to have clean hands dated October 1st or later. We'll talk more about that. And there will be some basic insurance that is required. There's a little bit more on eligibility. We will need your EIN or FEIN. Hopefully that is registered with the Office of Tax and Revenue, so it's more easy to get, but we'll talk about that. We are going to need an IRS W-9, 2018 or later. That's a one-page document. It's pretty easy to fill out, but you'll need your EIN for that. One thing that notes is that grants are taxable, both at the local and the federal level. And so we collect the W-9 because the grant will be reported, and so you will need to make sure that you are noting that on your taxes. You will need an ARIBA number. If you're not sure what an ARIBA number is, we're going to talk about an ARIBA number that is related to OCP so that you can get paid by this grant. If you've already been paid by district government, you probably already have an ARIBA number. If you've never been paid by district government before, this may be a new process. And then we're going to ask you to go as far as you can in the steps, registering with OCP as a vendor if you have not already. This last two are to make sure that we can get payment out to you more quickly so that things are not delayed. So as we said before, but I'll say it again, only certified business enterprises are eligible for this grant. We know that CBEs have an incredible amount of skill and information and talent and expertise. And we know that that is the right expertise for the types of support and services that other CBEs need to be more successful in the green energy contracts market. So this is only available to CBEs to provide services to other CBEs. If you came here because these back office services sound really interesting and you would like to receive the back office services and be considered for that, we will put information out once those services are in place to all eligible CBEs, but you can use this link. And again, we will send this out, this full deck out, but you can use this link to sign up for direct information on receiving services under CBE Green. All right. Let's go through some of those eligibility pieces and remind you where to look for them. And then you'll see where we're going to go through and how we're going to look at the eligibility documentation. So the first thing to check is that you have an active CBE. There is a database that is a public database of CBEs that is available on DSLBD's website. So this is the link for it, but you can also Google find CBEs, and usually that is the top hit. You will want to go to this link that says find a certified company and click on that. Within that, there is a search function. This is what the Find CBEs page looks like. You can type by business name or by CBE number and then click search. You got to make sure that you get it right and that you click search so you can find it. But then once you find it, you'll be able to find your active CBE number. You should also review and make sure the other information about your business is up to date, making sure that addresses and contact information is correct. Now let's talk a little bit about your active license with the DLCP. Still getting used to that acronym. Previously DCRA. So you should have an active business license if you are a CBE. Most of the time that business license is some sort of general business license from DCRA. Sometimes you have an alternative license, particularly for lawyers. There may be a few other types of businesses that don't get general business licenses. There are instructions on how to upload a copy of your licensing if you do not have a DLCP license. But for most people, you should have a DLCP license and it should be searchable in this database. We're going to search in this database to make sure that it's active and that it aligns with information about the address of where you are. So you want to make sure that that's correct. And so you can put in your license number, you can put in your address, you can put in the business name, all in this top bar up here. Once you click search, there's going to be a little box that says licenses. You will want to click on the license and then look down to see what the license status is. You want to make sure that the license is active or ready to renew. You do not want it to be revoked or expired or canceled. And you want to make sure that the other information on the license is again correct. All right. If you do not have a BBL and a basic business license is not correct for your business, if you have alternative licensure, you will be able to upload a copy of that into the system. And we will just review the paper document that you have. Next up, in terms of things that are required, and this one is one of the pieces that can be a major barrier to grants and contracts. This is clean hands with the Office of Tax and Revenue. I want to clarify a few things up top that are important about clean hands. Clean hands is from the Office of Tax and Revenue, and it indicates that you do not owe the District of Columbia any money or any back critical paperwork. This is different. This is not the same thing as your corporation's good standing certificate. That comes from a very different place. People get confused between those documents a lot. This is why we have a copy of what the document should look like here in the slides. A certificate of clean hands from the Office of the Chief Financial Officer. You will get this in mytax.dc.gov and we'll show you how. But it's going to have your FEIM number. It should have your business name. We are not looking for your personal clean hands. We are looking for the business clean hands. It does have to be in compliance. If you are out of compliance, it will generate a certificate, but it will say out of compliance. If it is out of compliance, I highly recommend that you call the numbers below and start trying to resolve that as soon as possible. You will need to have an active clean hands in the application by the deadline, and it has to be dated October 1st, 2022 or later. So in going to look for clean hands, you're going to go to mytax.dc.gov, and then it's a little hard to see here, but there's a box that says clean hands. It's down here at the bottom left. And within that, you're going to go to request a certificate of clean hands. You'll have to use your MyTax login, but then you should be able to generate one. What we typically suggest to people is if you are interested in grants or if you are interested in contracts, that you be checking this every 30 to 90 days. One of the things that does happen is sometimes there's a paperwork piece on the back end that you need to resolve. That can take time. So if you are thinking about applying for this grant, I suggest the very first thing that you do is you check for your clean hands. And if you have any issues, then you start working that issue as soon as possible with the Office of Tax and Revenue. I did see a question asking when we'll receive this presentation deck. It will go out very shortly after this session. It will also be uploaded into the Zoom grant system, but it will go out to all registrants of this session. So if you need more information on the certificate of clean hands, this is something that OTR, the Office of Tax and Revenue, has put together. So this site has more information if you need a tutorial on how to find it. Okay, the next piece that we're going to need is a certificate of insurance. General liability insurance is absolutely required for this grant. General liability insurance for the business applying. If you have employees, you are required to also have workman's comp. And if the business owns a vehicle, you are required to have automotive. If awarded, you will need to add indemnification of district government to this insurance. This insurance needs to be active now. If it does lapse, if you are awarded during the time of the grant, then you would provide an updated version. Let me go back to insurance and say one additional piece. I'm sorry, the whole thing came down. All right. Going back on insurance very briefly, even though my slides are arguing with me. There is always a possibility for application. These are the insurances that are required. Depending on what service you are providing under the grant, if you are awarded, if we go through the grant writing process with you, additional insurances could apply depending on the activities that you will be doing under the grant. So the EIN, as I said before, hopefully most applicants already have an EIN since you are CBEs. We will say a few things. We know sometimes when people don't have an EIN, if they go to get an EIN, people are very happy to charge them money to get that EIN. Just we always want to make very clear that an EIN is free to get from the IRS. You do not need to pay any money to get an EIN. If you have lost your EIN, the IRS does have an option for helping you find your EIN again, and that is on the IRS website. We just sent that out to somebody for something different today. There are 4 places that your EIN is going to be in the application, and you want to make sure that it matches. Because if it doesn't match, that may be a reason that your application is removed from eligibility. So it's going to be asked in the very first page of the application. It's called an application summary or basic details, where we're just asking like, who are you? What is the name of your business? It is in required eligibility documentation. You'll have to type it in. The last 4 digits should be on your clean hands, and that's the same number that will need to be on your IRS W-9. Here's a copy of the W-9. It is generally downloadable from the IRS website, in which we have a link in the RFA. It is a pretty short document giving basic information about your business, because we'll be reporting any awarded grants to the IRS and OTR for tax purposes. All right, the AREBA supplier number. And this one is a piece that hopefully is useful whether or not you get this grant, because this is the information that you need in order to get paid from district government. And so this all happens through the Office of Contracts and Procurement. And so you can start this process with this link on vendor registration. And so AREBA is a third-party system that is used. So you will get a supplier number, and then we'll use that to register with OCP as a vendor. So this is what AREBA would look like. So we'll be looking, we can see in the back end the AREBA number. And then you want to keep going through past registration. If you don't make it through full registration as a vendor, then your payment may be delayed even if you are awarded a grant as you go through the process of getting set up. So once again, we have some courtesy eligibility review deadlines. Those are November 4th and November 18th at 2 p.m. You will need to submit your application in Zoom Grants. You will be able to continue to edit your application after it is submitted. So if you only submit the eligibility information and are still working on your narrative, that's okay. Your application can be unlocked and you can continue to work on the narrative sections. So we highly suggest submitting by those deadlines so that you get the courtesy review. And if there's anything that looks out of place with your eligibility, you are able to receive a notice and correct before the final deadline. And you'll see, since there are 2 dates, we will look to get the responses back out from those in the first tranche before the second one, so you can make a correction and have a second review of your eligibility as well. All right, we're going to switch and start talking about how you can use the funds under this grant. So there are some allowed costs, there are some disallowed costs. You will have to propose a budget of how you would spend the money under the grant. That is part of your competitive application. So within that, we want to make sure that you reference the allowed uses and disallowed uses as you prepare that budget that you're proposing. Also, please be aware that anyone who is awarded a grant in the grant award process, we may seek to negotiate what the final grant is if we have any suggested changes to the budget that you have proposed. So allowable costs are listed in the RFA. They are generally related to the types of things that we are seeking. So market research and report development, direct support and training related costs, including but not limited to staff time, materials, research, space for in-person meetings, or technology for virtual meetings, software for clients directly related to the types of activities that you're having, like accounting or project management software, marketing collateral and programming for CBEs and for opportunities, costs related to analyzing the effectiveness of the support and training that you might provide. All costs have to be during the period of performance. The period of performance will be set in your grant agreement, but it will generally be from the date your grant is signed through September 30th, 2022. so long as you have active insurance. You have to maintain active insurance for costs to be accepted from DSLBD. And then other costs proposed by you that we accept in our sole discretion. So if something doesn't fit in this list, but you think it makes a lot of sense with the proposal that you have, you can propose it so long as it's not on the disallowed cost list, which we're about to go through. Okay, disallowed uses. You cannot use a grant to finance existing debt or any taxes that are owed. You cannot use it for anything that's outside of that period of performance. You cannot use it for anything that is reimbursed by another DC government grant, no double dipping. No personal use or uses outside of the purposes identified in the grant. Unfortunately, for the most part, no food. You'll see there's a small exception there. No alcohol or alcohol-related paraphernalia. No payments to professional fundraisers. No donations or charitable giving to nonprofits. No vehicle purchases, no real estate purchases, no lobbying of District of Columbia government, no lawsuits against the District of Columbia government, no goods or products deemed illegal by the District of Columbia government, and any activity, goods, or products deemed ineligible by DSLBD at sole discretion. So with that, we're going to start jumping over to the competitive application and just sort of like pausing a little bit because we went through eligibility and rules, and that's one whole section of the grant. And the competitive section is the part where people reviewing your grant, this is what they're going to see. So you've got to get everything that's on the rules and the eligibility right. That's just about making sure that you're ready to enter the competition. This is the actual competitive portion of the grant, that anyone who meets eligibility, your grant application will go through to a review panel, and they'll be reviewing and scoring your grant. One thing that we will talk a little bit about is we're going to do the narrative questions first, and then the scoring criteria. They line up directly. And so you should be not only looking at the questions that we're asking you, but you should be looking at how they're asked of reviewers. It's in the RFA for how they can score what it is that you're putting in, so that your competitive answers are really making sure that you're hitting towards the scoring criteria. All right. So the competitive application is divided into 6 sections. As I just said, they directly correspond to the scoring criteria in section 6 of the RFA. There's also an option, it's not required, for some additional documentation that you can upload, and we'll discuss what that is, but those are optional. All right. Question A, and it's got a lot of pieces to it because the entire question is worth 20 points. And so there are several sub-questions, but it's about explaining how the proposed project provides critical supports to CBEs. Sorry, I clicked. Critical support to CBEs in building up and pursuing green energy related contracts. So the first one is to just help reviewers get a sense of what you're doing. You're going to mention if it's a market study, if it is marketing and promotion of CBEs, or back office services. You're going to provide a brief description of the overall project to help grant reviewers understand the rest of the answers. You're going to explain what area of support you will provide for CBEs. You will explain why these supports are critical to CBEs pursuing green contracting, and you will explain the barriers that you perceive CBEs may face in obtaining these types of supports on their own in the open market. So how are you helping CBEs overcome barriers that they would face in the open market getting to this support? That was the big picture piece of the project. This here is all about timelines and budgets and project goals. So the next question, which is also for 20 points, explain how the proposal is realistic, both in the timelines and the expenditures and the goals. So in the amount of time that you think that you're going to operate this, which is probably sometime after February 2023 through September 30th, whatever the project period is that you're proposing. Is it reasonable to get what you want to get done in that time? Is it reasonable to get it done with that amount of money? So here is where you would add a detailed work plan outlining each major activity of your proposal. What are the actual pieces of work that are getting it done? Detail how many CBEs you propose to support and explain the average cost per CBE for the support that you're providing. Detail your onboarding plan for CBEs, for marketing or back office support, given that we're going to refer some CBEs to you, but you can also additionally recruit eligible CBEs. And so if that's a little different because you're doing the market study, then explain the market research process for the market study. Explain the capacity of your business or organization to complete all of the proposed tasks and expend the budget by September 30th, 2023. And note that if you are awarded a lesser amount than you request, please share what portion of your proposal you would prefer to be funded and why. There will be an opportunity here. There'll be a separate tab that will show you in Zoom grants that you can go to and fill in your budget. And you'll notice it says that you can apply for any amount up to $100,000 because you can apply for all three of the different areas. You can apply for back office, marketing, and the market study together. Explain past performance in the area of the support proposed. This is 20 points. Past performance does not have to be in green energy contracting specifically, but this will tell reviewers about how your past performance aligns to what you're going to do. So this is where you tell us who will directly operate the grant and what is their relevant experience and credentials. You can add additional resumes in, you can add resumes and additional documents if you like. Detail the past performance of your organization for market research, marketing services, and/or equitable back office support services for small businesses. If you would like to add a capability statement, you can add that into additional documents. And then you're going to explain how that experience relates to sustainable energy and green procurement. If it's a new content area, that's okay. You need to explain how your project team will approach adapting your other experience to this content area. All right. The last two sections are a little bit shorter, but they're also worth 20 points. So just because it's fewer questions, they're all worth 20 points as you look through. So are the proposed services targeted to support CBEs in achieving success in contracting development and contract delivery? So explain how it will directly impact a CBE's ability to compete for green market contracts, and explain how it will directly impact a CBE's ability to expand its business in the green energy economy. It's a really good place to just sell the value of the services that you're going to provide. And the last one is about equitable access. So it's similar. Tell us why this proposal will support equitable access to green and sustainable market opportunities. So explain how this project supports small, resident-owned, and disadvantaged CBEs with a focus on broadening equitable access to market opportunity, and explain the reporting and metrics you will use to track outcomes for lessons learned. And I just went over that one, so I'll just do section F. Section F is the additional uploads that many of which were mentioned in the questions above, but there are a couple of additional ones. So if you would like to submit a slide deck of no more than 15 slides to help demonstrate your proposal, you may do so. That is not required. You may submit resumes for each of the key training or other personnel identified in the proposal. That is optional, not required. You can submit a capability statement, and you may choose to submit up to 3 letters of support of any kind. And if you have more than 3 people you want to have submit letters of support, they could do coalition letters. So once again, these narrative questions directly align to the scoring criteria. So make sure you're reviewing both as you are completing them. So for the scoring criteria, we will see section A. Will the proposed project provide critical support to CBEs in building up and pursuing green energy related contracts for 20 points? B, is the proposal realistic in the projected timelines, expenditures, and project goals? And so you'll see the additional details here that we provide to the reviewers. Do providers have past performance in the area of this area of support proposed? Are the proposed supports targeted to help CBEs achieve success and success in the green economy? Will the project increase access to opportunity for small, resident-owned, and disadvantaged CBEs? So these are the questions that we will provide to reviewers. So there's a few other important pieces. Sorry, I'm clicking through, that are part of the RFA. So once again, we do suggest reading the whole piece. We'll have information about the selection process. In brief on the selection process, after I and any members of my team who are doing eligibility review, complete eligibility review and determine which are eligible to move forward, applications will move to review panels. Review panels will review and score the competitive section only. That information will be combined to find top scores and to provide to the director for final determinations. The one thing that I'm going to do is we're going to do a little bit of a Zoom grants demo We know sometimes if you haven't worked with an application system before, it could just be useful to see things. I'm going to first show some screenshots, and then I'm actually going to go to my browser and show you a little bit about how to manage Zoom grants by doing a test application. So one thing to know about Zoom grants, which is the application system, you will need an account to apply. So when you first go to the link, you'll be able to see the application, but you can't type in it because you have to log in. If you already have a Zoom grants account, so long as you have used it to apply to things and not to review applications, then you will be able to use that same Zoom grants account. We do recommend that the business owner at least be added. Their information will have to be added in. If somebody else is applying for this grant for them, then they need to still be able to sign off on the attestations and to know that it's in, and they're the ones who would sign the grant final. So you can add additional contacts and give additional people access, but you will definitely need to have an account to apply. And one thing that's important is that Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern, Zoom Grants has a question space where you can email and say, hey, I'm having a technical issue with the application system. They can't answer any questions about the RFA, any questions about the grant, but if the system appears to not be working or you're having troubles logging in, this is both listed in the RFA and here. You can reach out to Zoom Grants and ask a technical question. You can feel free to copy us on that email, but it's not required. And if you just want to spend some more time seeing more information about generally how to use Zoom Grants as an applicant, it won't be specific to this grant, but they do have a general slideshow as part of Zoom Grants, University. I saw someone just asked me to repeat something, so I'm going to go back and pull that up. So in terms of a Zoom Grant account, if you have applied as a business to get to Zoom Grants, through Zoom Grants to an application, you should be able to use that same login. If you have ever participated with someone as a reviewer of grant applications in Zoom Grants, they may require you to get a new login, just to use a different email address. But if you're having any troubles with your login, you can contact Zoom Grants and they can help you sort that out. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. So when you first navigate to the link in the application, and these screenshots are from last year, but these look the same, and then I'll actually do the live demo of this year's. So when you first click the link in the RFA to navigate to Zoom Grants, it's going to bring you to a page that looks like this. And you can kind of see open programs. It'll show you that particular grant and you can apply or preview. But one thing that you'll want to do is either sign into an existing account or create a new account. And that is what is available over here on the right that's circled. So if you're trying to log in, your login information goes up there. You forgot password if you know the email and not the password. If you need to create a new one, you can create a new account down here. So if you are already logged in when you click the link on the RFA, then this is what you will see. It'll still come here, but you'll want to click that button that says apply now, start application. Otherwise, everything that you'll see will be view only and you still won't be able to type. All right, so this is where I'm going to bring down Canva and I'm going to go through and show you doing a test account in the live application. Bring up my browser. There's all right. You are in the browser. I'm first going to show you how to go find the RFA right now. So I'm just going to Google the green grant. All right, so if you Google CBE Green Grant, you will get to the two links they both have the information that you need, the CBE Green Grant page, as well as the current grant opportunities. I'll go on the Green Grant page so that you can see it. We've updated this from last year, but it's pretty similar. And so this has some basic information about the grant, some of the stuff from the notice of funding availability, so who can apply. Those same videos that I showed you earlier are here as well. And then when you go to the very bottom, it says, click the NOFA or click the RFA. If you're not familiar with a NOFA, it's a 2-page document that is required on grants that is submitted to the DC Register to say that grants are coming. So it has less information than the RFA, but it is always posted along with the RFA. One thing that's important to know about an RFA, we try not to need any edits. If there is a required edit, whether that includes if we have to extend the deadline or if there is an error that's found that has to be created, we will take this document and we will say date updated and we'll indicate what was changed and it will be below. So we always encourage people to come back to the website to get the RFA in case for any reason there was a required update, but we will try to avoid that. So this is the RFA on DSLBD's website. So section 2 has the online application information. I'm going to go down to section 2, which is on page 3. And this is the link for the CBE Green Grant. Let's see if it will let me go. Copy that. Come into a new tab. Okay. So you see that I am not logged in. It is here. But I'm going to go ahead and log in with an account that I have for this purpose. All right. Now I am logged in. And so within Zoom Grants, if I want to apply for this application, I have to click Apply Now. Otherwise, I can just look through and see the different sections. So I'll go ahead and actually start a test application. So it sees my application has been created. I can get started. I'm going to click into basic details. So here it's going to ask for a project name, amount requested, some other basic information. And this is where I can add collaborators if I need to. The required eligibility documentation is all of the important information about your CBE number, your business license. One thing that's important to note is we ask questions, and then there are also a section where we ask you to confirm that you've uploaded a document. The documents that you upload get attached at the bottom, but we find that people sometimes miss it. So we have questions here to say, yes, I did, or no, I did not. This is also where you will answer questions about whether or not certain types of insurances are required or not required for your business. The narrative questions of the application, you may be required to answer some of these in order to submit for the early deadline. If so, you can simply put in a statement saying, still completing. You'll notice that these boxes here for which one are you applying to are check boxes, so you can check more than one. The additional documents for your narrative section are not at the bottom. So you can indicate that you're going to do that. That's a question, but you will actually need to add those in another tab, which is optional documents. And so here is those additional optional documents if you want to. And then very important, you need to complete the budget tab. It's a fairly simple budget tab with an item description and how much would be a proposed cost. So this is a cost category and how much it would be proposed. This will auto total what that is. So it should total to the same pieces that you are saying in your narrative. And then you can add additional documentation notes on the budget narrative so that reviewers can better understand what you're proposing. Those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tabs are everything that's required for the application. You will need to hit submit a few things when using Zoom Grants. One, if you've had it open for a long time, it may have a little bit of difficulty saving. Sometimes you need to double click the page or you'll need to reload the page. If it's just acting very, very slow, log out and log back in. Additionally, if you are copying and pasting from another system like Word or somewhere else where you've written your narrative, some special characters won't save. So when you go to hit submit, it will actually give you an error. The most likely thing is you have some special characters that are not saving into the system. You can preview your application if you want to see it in that view, but let me just show you a couple of other quick things that will be turned on. Let's see, view open programs. So the request for applications is here at the top. It says show link to request for applications, show register for information session. This should later have additional things available in the library. And this is also where we will post copies of the information sessions as well as sending those out. That is everything on Zoom Grants. I'm going to check the chat and make sure there were no questions. Someone doesn't see the application as an option now. You should. I'm in the live application as an applicant. So if you are having troubles getting to it, you might want to check the link again, but also write to us at inno.ed@dc.gov because this application is live and open and you can see it right here. I'm going to go ahead and pull down this and go back to the slide deck. And we're about to get to questions. I know there are a couple more in the chat, and so we'll be able to go back and look at pieces, but I'll just go ahead and finish up these last couple of reminders. Again, these are some key dates. The final deadline is December 2nd at 2 p.m. Eastern. We will close the system, and so you have to have it in by 2 o'clock, not 2 o'clock and 3 seconds, 2 o'clock. Awards are anticipated in January 2023. The period of performance is the date of grant signature. This should say September 30th, sorry, September 30th, 2023. And final reports, which you have to say everything that got done, as well as prove that you properly expended all the funds with full accounting and showing us that funds were properly expended by October 30th, 2023. You'll see this is the information. I'm not going to go through all of it because it is in the RFA, but we have a paragraph on the selection process. And then we also have a section on award information. There are a couple more sections that are shown here, but it says a little bit about how we go through the process of actually awarding. If you apply for this grant and are not awarded, you will be given an opportunity for a 15-minute feedback call. We did get a lot of applications last time. We were able to fund 3 in 2022, and we got over 20 applications. So we know that there are a lot of really good ideas out there that we can't always fund all of them, but happy to provide you with as much feedback as we're able to. I'm also just putting this up. I'm not going to read through all these, but every grant comes with important legal disclaimers. That is section 9. This is pulled directly from the RFA. It is good to know all of those and to read those as well. Once again, the question policy is to ask a question in an information session, a drop-in Q&A session, or to write to us at no.ed@dc.gov. December 2nd, 2 p.m. Final question deadline is November 30th at 2 p.m. And those courtesy eligibility reviews, those deadlines are November 4th or November 18th at 2 p.m. All right, and so I'm going to say thank you, and I'm going to get into everything that's in the chat. And I know that there are a number of questions. Thank you, everyone, for listening in. So someone did ask where the RFA is on the website. We did cover that. The presentation deck will be sent out later today to everyone who registered for this information session, along with the recording, and those will also be posted within Zoom grants, available those links at the top. All right, if you are not seeing the application as an option now, when you try to click on the link, write to us at no.ed@dc.gov. The next question is, where will the green program solicitations be posted? Is it at DCSEU? And Nathan, please feel free to come off of mute if you want to clarify as I'm answering that question. For the actual contract opportunities, the central ones are already listed on DCSEU's website. And there's a link that is available in this presentation that you'll get that will take you directly to that page. But you can also go to DCSEU.com and look in their menu items on things for contractors, and then you'll see the open scopes of work that are available. That said, we do recognize that we are centrally focusing on opportunities through DCSEU, but the market opportunities, both from other parts of government and the private market, are much broader than that as well. Are there additional questions that people would like to ask at this time? And I'll watch the chat for a moment. You can also feel free, if you'd prefer, to come off of mute and ask a question if you have one.
Hi there. First off, thank you so much for your time. This is Lauren Powell with the Seller LLC. I had a quick question about follow-on. You mentioned that last year you had 4 applicants that won this grant. Were there any follow-on contract opportunities post-grant award?
There were 3. There were 3 individuals who received grants, and they provided legal services, proposal development services, and accounting services. When you say follow-on opportunities, can you clarify? Do you mean for the grantees, or do you mean for businesses taking part of the services?
For the grantees, as far as maybe after those services were provided, were any additional contract opportunities provided to them, for their past performance on that award?
Nothing that I'm aware of at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Hi. Yes, I just have a question. So I was the one who asked the question about the grant showing up. And so I saw last year's, and I know what it looks like. I had even clicked into it. So it's just my dashboard is blank. And I was just wondering, is that a question you were saying contact Zoom grants about, or is that through you? Through
Um,
no.edu. Edu.
Yeah, we're happy to try to be helpful, but Zoom grants can usually be pretty helpful on that. They'll want to know if you can provide them when you reach out, be like, hey, I'm trying to find this. This is the link I'm trying to go to, but my dashboard is blank.
Okay.
And feel free to copy us if you want to when you reach out to Zoom grants. You don't have to,
Okay.
but you're welcome to.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Give it another moment or so, and otherwise we'll go ahead and wrap up a couple minutes early. All right. While we are two CBEs, 4 CBEs. We really do recognize the strength of the CBE community, and this is a testament to it. Someone asks, contacting us. The email address is all over the RFA, but I'm going to drop it right in the chat. It is inno.ed@dc.gov. One thing we will be doing is having the open drop-in questions. And so you will see an away message up right now that says that we may answer your question in the next drop-in. So if you are having technical difficulties, definitely reach out to Zoom grants. If it's a question on the grant, we're going to be having those regular drop-in sessions. I believe the next one is scheduled for November 7th.
One more question, please. You may have hit on this and I missed it. Are we able to apply for contracts with DCSEU and support this grant as well?
Yeah, those are unrelated. And so, anyone who is eligible for contracting opportunities with DCSEU, we encourage you to do so.
Thank you.
So how many hours do the green training sessions take? It varies because Train Green is all sorts of different industry certifications. So some of them are short, some of them are long. I am really bad with the acronyms. I'm going to say, it's things like LEED certification, ASHRAC, and I can't fully tell you what ASHRAC stands for, but some of them are pretty deep technical certifications. Some of them are shorter intro courses. They do have a career pathways model. So I highly suggest it's also up on the CBE, or I'm sorry, on the DCSEU website to see a little bit more about Train Green, and that operates on a fiscal year. So you'll be able to see a little bit about what closed for last year and what's coming up next year. But they'll be continuing to add more over time. No, you are not required to take anything in Train Green in order to be successful in applying for the CBE Green Grant. So just to add a layer in, the CBE Green Grant is a back offices and marketing grant for CBEs. And so the technical skill that someone needs to do in order to do the actual building and solar and green energy infrastructure work, those skills are trained by DCSEU. But we know that sometimes businesses need additional things for contract success, back office and marketing support, and that's what this grant is about. So it's why one of the questions is designed and developed that if you don't have experience in this industry, but you have strong experience in the type of back office service support that you think is valuable, that is perfectly acceptable. And you can just explain how you're going to translate that really strong accounting, legal, some other type of service into this. There's a question that came in. Is payroll allowed on the budget for the grant? Yes, it is. So in terms of thinking about what it is that you might do, it's very possible that your services are going to be specifically service-based. A lot of services are service-based, and so the actual hours that your staff are going to spend.
I have another question. This is about one of the requirements in the RFA, just about up to 25, the amount of businesses you'd help. So in that, and could you just clarify, I see it there, but I'm going to go back as well. But while you're on the line, in the 3-month period, are you saying that you should be able to fully service, or is it start off? Because sometimes services are ongoing for people. So, just clarify that, how helping 25 different businesses in 3 months do things, how that would look? Or
I think This year we have longer than 3 months, and so if it still says 3 months in there, my apologies.
And it may not. I was just kind of keeping up with the presentation. Of course, I'd go back and look it over in detail.
So I've pulled up the screen, just 125. Sorry, I just want to make sure I get to the exact area.
For me, thank you.
Maybe in the next one. No, I know where it's, I just read it too, so I'm sorry, I'm trying to find where it says up to 25. So your period of performance, the time under the grant, will be the time that you propose, but it can be no longer than the date from which you sign your grant, which is probably January or February of 2023, ending in September 30th, 2023. And so depending on how you propose the service, it could all happen in a very short period of time, or it can happen over a long period of time. That is entirely for you to propose. And I apologize, I was looking for the reference of between 25 and 100 CBEs, because there is a reference to that. But the bigger piece is this question 7 right here under B. Detail how many CBEs you propose to support and explain the average cost per CBE. Different services and different packages of services that you offer cost different things. And so you're going to say, I can serve this many CBEs. This is how much it'll cost per CBE. This is why my budget makes sense. And so we don't have a lot of strong requirements on how much the cost should be. That's part of the competition. So if 2 people with very similar services come through, then, then someone can say, hey, we think this is a better value or that is better value. Sorry, did I answer the question?
Yes, I think I know that question about the 2025 is in the RFA. Let's read through it.
I think it's in the now that I think about it, I think it's in the scoring.
Okay.
No, I
And so
know I saw that.
that
Yeah.
question B7 that you just answered gave clarity there. I think it was just still a matter of speaking to, it's almost like those 2 questions. If we say like, here's how many will help, and we don't meet the 2025 because of the quality it would, versus the quantity. That's what I was trying to speak on, or trying to get you to speak on.
Okay, so in general, in grants, you're going to have a proposal, you're going to have a budget, you're going to explain what you're going to do, we're going to negotiate that final. We will also, for anyone who's awarded, be meeting with you regularly throughout the grant period. And so should you learn something, or should something just not be making sense as you are operating the grant, there is an opportunity to amend a grant if we need to. We prefer not to, but we also want to be responsive to realistic things that are on the ground. I don't know if that's additional context. And then I'm just going to say, somebody asked a question. I'm going to ask you to write into us separately about the steps to attain a CBE. If you are not yet a CBE and looking to become a CBE, that may not be realistic within the time frame of this grant. But if you're interested in being a CBE, we hope that you go through that process anyway. That is with another division at DSLBD, the certification division. So you can either find that on our website. So I can actually show you on the website where to find the information about CBE. Share my screen again. Okay. So I'm just going to go to DSLBD's webpage. And you're going to see this button up here that says Get Certified. Find certified companies is where you find your own CBE listing. But if you are an applicant for CBE, you click on New Applicants, and you can follow the information here about applying. There is no way to expedite your CBE application. So if you are not a CBE and you are thinking about applying for this, again, I do not know if it is realistic to complete your CBE application before the deadline, but you should start that right away if that's what you're doing. And on this page that I just showed you, there is the information for who you would reach out to with any questions or support on a CBE application. All right, so we're a little bit after 2 o'clock. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see. That caption highlights. Just double check and make sure I don't see any other questions. Doesn't look like it. So once again, the next information session, it is listed on Eventbrite, but I believe that is coming up November 7th. Before that is the early submission deadline for the first of the 2 courtesy review deadlines if you would like to have your eligibility information reviewed. I want to say thank you to everyone, and I'm going to go ahead and stop the session. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
Considered, I am grateful. Thank you.